Yo, how's it going, YouTube? Back in the video, and today I'm going to be talking about the Milwaukee Bucks and how, in my opinion, they are low-key kind of becoming underrated, which is insane to say about a team that literally won the NBA Finals 2 years ago and has a two-time MVP on their team. That is a crazy thing to say that they're underrated, but in my opinion, they are getting a little disrespected in a lot of rankings and how people really talk about the Eastern Conference, and I just think that they're not really getting all the respect that they fully deserve, and I'm beginning to why I think that and a few reasons in this video. So if that does sound interesting to do with this video, please hit the like button and subscribe button. It would mean the world to me, and watch it all the way through. But without further ado, without rambling on too much, let's get right into this video. Okay, so the first thing I want to get for this video is going to be that they have one of the, if not maybe the most talented roster in the entire Eastern Conference. Because if you break it down by player and by starting lineup and by bench unit, they have a very good unit throughout the entire team. As if you start at the top and you look at their big three, they have players like Giannis leading off their big three, and Giannis is always going to be an MVP candidate level player. He's always going to be a top 5 level player. He's an absolute beast. He's still young. Everybody knows who Giannis is. I don't have to introduce you to him. The dude's one of the faces of the league at this point. He's probably a finals away, if not already a guaranteed Hall of Famer if he retired today. Giannis is just an absolute beast, one of the best players to ever live. And then you also have Chris Middleton, a very underrated scorer, an all-star level player. He can score the ball at will. He's a very solid player, and one of the more underrated players because he's played in Milwaukee his entire career, which is a very small market when it comes to NBA terms. And then you have Jrue Holiday ending it out, and Jrue Holiday is one of the best perimeter defenders in the entire NBA. At his peak, he can play at an all-star level, and he's probably the best defensive guard in the entire NBA. There's so many podcasts of people asking who the hardest guy to guard, who the hardest guy to score on is, and they consistently answer with Jrue Holiday. That is how good he is. He has a lot of respect from the players around the league, and although he probably doesn't get the respect he deserves from the fans, all the players definitely know how good of a player Jrue Holiday is, and that big three has shown that they have more than enough talent to win a finals, as they did beat the Phoenix Suns 2 years ago in the finals, and that's how they were able to get it, and I was able to get Milwaukee's first one in a very long time. So I think for sure this big three has all the talent it needs to go all the way, and it is definitely one of the best in the entire NBA, hands down. And even if you zoom out of just the big three and the main stars on this roster, they still have very solid players throughout the entirety of their depth chart. As at center, they have an extremely good veteran in Brook Lopez. He knows how to win games. He's been in the league forever. He's adapted his game to the current NBA, so he's added a little bit of a three-pointer, and is just an all-around very solid center who isn't going to lose you games. Now, although he's not the Brook Lopez he once was, he is still a top half of the league center, and he is a very solid guy who helps you win games from a leadership perspective, and is just all around very solid. And they kind of have the same thing just as a guard with George Hill. George Hill is far from what he used to be, but he's still a very solid guy who knows how to win and can lead some of these young guys and actually help them win games into the future due to their leadership capabilities. And then at shooting guard, they have a young guy in Grayson Allen who has kind of silently, quietly put together a very solid career in the NBA with the Milwaukee Bucks. He's been one of the kind of under the radar guys. He's nothing special, but he's just a very average shooting guard, and due to all the bad energy and publicity around his name, a lot of people kind of choose not to pay attention to him, but he has quietly been very solid for this Milwaukee Bucks team for a few years now. And then obviously fan favorite Bobby Portis, MVP of the team. He has been extremely solid for them. Players love him, and he's really played very good since going to Milwaukee Bucks, and I think he really found his home. He embraces the Bucks fans, and he's just a perfect fit for this Milwaukee team, and really those are some of their best role players on this entire team. But they still have other ones like Pat Connaughton, who is a very good floor spacer. He knows how to play his role, and he fits very well playing alongside someone like Giannis. And Pat Connaughton is just one of those guys that can spread the floor and is a player that every team would love to have on their team. And then the last guy I want to get into is going to be Serge Ibaka. They got Serge Ibaka pretty much halfway through the year last year, and he was okay for them, but now he gets to go through an entire training camp with them. He gets to be fully healthy. He gets to get fully integrated in the system, And once again, although Serge Ibaka is not the same guy he used to be, he is still going to be a very good veteran leader on this team who's going to be able to be slightly productive off the bench, and I think he's going to give them valuable minutes, and he is going to help this team contributing to winning games. And I think they have a very good veteran roster that knows how to win, not going to panic in playoff time, and they can easily have the talent enough to make a run all the way to the NBA Finals once again. But now that I told you how much talent they have and how it's crazy that they can have this much talent on the roster and yet still be extremely underrated by a lot of the NBA media, pretty much just because they're a small market and NBA media usually promotes the bigger market teams even if they aren't as good, but the Milwaukee Bucks are still very underrated in a lot of media terms, and this is really because they lost in the second round last year in the playoffs. But when you really take context into that, it was a lot more impressive than a lot of people think, as that entire playoff run, they were without Chris Middleton, who is debatably their second best player and is definitely their second best offensive player. So, I mean, that is a huge loss to have, and they still went 7 games with the Boston Celtics, who made it to the NBA Finals and went in a 6-game series with the Golden State Warriors. So that Boston Celtics team was extremely good, and they still went to a very tight 7-game series without debatably their second best player on the roster, and that is extremely impressive, and nobody gives them credit for that. And in my opinion, if they had Chris Middleton, they probably win that series overall, and are probably the team that makes the finals. And I think they would have gave the Golden State Warriors much harder times in the finals than what Boston could do, just due to some matchup issues I don't think the Warriors would have really been able to do much about. And I do think if they had Chris Middleton, they probably would have been the team that made the finals out of the Eastern Conference. And that's why I think, once again, if they are to stay healthy, they should still remain the favorites out of the Eastern Conference, as nothing really has changed from year to year, majorly at least. Now, I know Boston did add Malcolm Brogdon, which is a pretty big adjustment, or at least addition for that team that is going to make them better, but I still think the Milwaukee Bucks are the better team. So if you really look at the talent on this roster, and then the whole reason why a lot of people do disrespect them, which is because they lost in the second round, I do think if you look at the context of it all, there's just no argument you can make that the Bucks aren't at least a top 2 team in the Eastern Conference going into this year, and that they shouldn't at least be one of the highest favorites in the Eastern Conference to win the finals. But yet a lot of big media people never really mention them or talk about them, just because they're the Milwaukee Bucks and that they struggled in the playoffs last year, not because they didn't have their second best player, but no one talked about it and no one gives them the credit they deserve. And I'm not even a Bucks fan. I just personally feel like the Milwaukee Bucks are not talked about nearly enough for how good they are and how good of a roster they are, and if they're healthy, how good they're going to be in the playoffs going into next year, because of all the veteran leadership they have and just how talented they actually are. But unfortunately, guys, that's my review. So comment below, do you agree with me? Do you think that the Milwaukee Bucks should get more respect? Do you think they're underrated? I want to hear our thoughts in the comment section below. And if you like the video, hit like button, subscribe button, it would mean the absolute world to me. And I hope you have a blessed day. Have a blessed day. So you have a blessed day. All glory to God. See you in the next video. Goodbye. Boo. Blah.